Hello, good
Good
afternoon. So
afternoon,
glad you're here.
everybody. I'm going to give everybody 2 or 3 minutes to arrive. We are recording, and then I will get started. I'll let everybody know in advance that I'm going to answer a few questions at the end, but I'm not going to take a look at the chat during the presentation because my brain doesn't work that way. So you can feel free to ask questions in the chat, but I'm going to do questions all at the end. And I'll discuss it more, but I just wanted to let everyone know I'm not going to be taking a look at the chat while I speak because I can't make my brain work that way. So I'll start in 5 minutes, give everyone a chance to arrive. This session is being recorded, and I will post a YouTube link after the session's over so that anyone who missed it can watch it later or wanted to watch a part again. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Make sure everyone can see me. Can someone tell me if you can hear me? I'm over 40, so I need fans pointed at me at all times. Great, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to prepare my Diet Mountain Dew. Very important. All right. So we're recording, and I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you all for taking time to join me for the session on acting while disabled. I'm going to preface this by saying I am an attorney. I am not your attorney. I am not giving you legal advice. Please don't take anything I'm saying as legal advice. You should consult an attorney or your agent. Also, I am only a licensed agent in the state of California, and I'm SAG franchised in the state of California. I don't know necessarily what the rules are for other states. I've never been SAG franchised in New York or Georgia or anywhere else, just LA. So this is my information is based on that. I'm going to start by talking about my background a little bit so you understand why I'm the person giving this speech and not someone else. And if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'm going to do some questions at the end. I'd hope you could keep the questions sort of general because I don't want to be giving legal advice essentially to anybody based on their situation. However, I'm happy to give general information. First, let me tell you about myself. I am from Houston, and I grew up in Texas, moved to DC to go to law school at Georgetown. And while I was in law school, my health was declining and I was sleeping 16 hours a day. And I went and saw several doctors who did no blood work. As anyone who's chronically ill will tell you, it takes a lot for you to get a doctor to just draw blood. And so I went undiagnosed for quite a while, even though I was sleeping 16 hours a day. I graduated from Georgetown Law and moved out to LA the next day to be a stand-up comic, which my parents enjoyed absolutely as much as you think they would. While I was working as a comedian, I was also working on legal work, and I became the co-author of my law book, which is the top disability law treatise in the country for more than a decade. And so I've been the co-author of this book since 2004. I graduated law school in 2002. I'm significantly older than I look. I'm in my mid 40s. Or I think I look not like I'm in my mid 40s. Maybe I do. I was working on law stuff to pay bills while I was working as a stand-up comic and doing commercial acting. And I was also working in casting on the side. I worked for a lot of commercial offices and a lot of commercial casting in LA know me. But my health was declining. And in 2007, I was in a very serious car accident where I broke my everything. And I was also in 2005 finally diagnosed with lupus. Lupus, RA, osteoarthritis, degenerative disc disease, lumbar and cervical spondylosis, a bunch of other fun stuff, POTS and all these other good times that I don't recommend if anyone is thinking about. So I was also working in commercials, and the last commercial I did, I was on set standing for 16 hours and I was bedridden for a week after. And I realized that I was just not physically able to do the job anymore. I am extremely physically disabled in a way that it is so painful for me to stand for more than about 10 or 15 minutes. I'm an ambulatory wheelchair user. I can use my cane to go to the bathroom or whatever, but I can't stand for very long. And even sitting for a long time can be very uncomfortable for me. So I realized that that was not compatible with a career of hurry up and wait, standing in who knows what shoes for 15 or 16 hours, and that I needed to make an adjustment in my career. Fortunately, I was able to, I have a law degree, so I was able to move into agenting pretty easily. And I worked as an agent at another agency for a few years before opening the library agency in 2017. It will be 5 years in business this May. So I'm very proud that I was able to make the move, and I love my job. I am very happy as an agent. I love being able to help other people's dreams come true, but I also recognized that I was not qualified to be on set anymore. No one had to tell me that. I just knew it was too physically taxing and painful. So I just want you guys to understand that I've been an actor, in casting, and now an agent, all three as a disabled person. And so I 100% feel where you're coming from. I'm going to talk about real specifics, like how, what types of pictures to get, where to put it on your resume, those types of things. But I wanted to give you a broader framework first. So basically, what does the law provide now? Unfortunately, 20% of Americans have a disability. And of the network television shows, scripted network television shows, only 3% of characters have disabilities. And of those 3%, only 5% of those characters are played by actors with disabilities. So that's pretty unfortunate and unacceptable, quite honestly. And we need to make a lot of changes to raise the visibility of the disability community. So I'm trying to keep this as not lawyery as possible, because you're not lawyers. This is my audience is, but I do want to talk broadly about the ADA. The ADA says that a person with a disability is a qualified individual, and I'll talk more about that in a minute, with a substantial limitation of a major life activity. Major life activities include walking, speaking, breathing, eating, working, sexual reproduction. Driving has sometimes found to be in disregard that. But the issue is you have to be otherwise qualified. And that's the key phrase there. Taking into account any accommodations they provide, if you are a wheelchair user, such as myself, you're not qualified to play a police officer running down the street in a police chase. And if that's what they're looking to cast, studios do not have to change the role to accommodate your disabilities, because they are specifically looking for an actor to do this specific action. It would change the essence of the role to make them not running. So with that said, I just want to be very clear. A lot of disability activists want studios to have to move the moon and the stars. I believe they should make adjustments, but they're not legally required to do so. So I just want to be very clear about that up front, because a lot of people are saying, well, how can I make the studio change the role? You can't. But there are ways you can get creative, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Oh, can everyone not hear me, or just Nicholas? Okay. Maybe I'm frozen on your computer, Nicholas. If you continue not to be able to hear, I will put my headphones in. I'm just trying to avoid doing that, because if people are lip reading, it sort of obstructs my mouth. No one told me they needed a sign interpreter, and I also sign. I also want to, in this space, talk about COVID a little bit, because currently SAG in LA is Zone A, which is requiring vaccination and masking on set and testing. And SAG consulted with me and my father, who is the nation's expert on employment law, when they were creating their policies. So they did a lot of research into what the law allows and requires under the ADA and Section 504, and you don't need to know all this law stuff. The point is, you cannot get an exemption to this masking and testing requirement. It is under the direct threat provision of the ADA. You have to test to work on set. You have to mask when you are not in the scene, and they're totally within their rights to require that. So now that I've talked a bit about where the law is right now, unfortunately, I want to talk a little bit about what a vision of maximum access would look like. I'm sort of tilting now. Maximum access would require affirmative efforts by studios, networks, major agencies to not only cast people with disabilities, but put people with disabilities on their boards. there's no excuse when 20% of the population has disabilities not to have a disability advisor on this boards of major studios, you know, Sony, MGM. They should have disability advisors. I do not want any of those jobs, by the way. So I'm not angling for that. So hire someone else. But second, I think that we need to get especially celebrities to insist on disability inclusion riders. They're similar to minority inclusion riders. So for example, if you are shooting something in LA and it's supposed to be, you know, a crowd scene, you have to use X number or X% of extras that have disabilities, not just pretending, actually have disabilities. And if we could put those riders in, a lot of celebrities have minority writers in their contracts, so you have to use X number of minority actors. And some celebrities use writers to make sure that they're elderly extras. And I think that if we push harder, we could get disability inclusion writers. This work is being done by the organization Respectability, respectability.org. They have a whole toolkit for productions and studios, and also in looking for accommodations. If you want a toolkit to show you how to sort of approach accommodations, respectability.org is a great place to start. We will have maximum access when the industry goes beyond what's required under the ADA and state laws. At this time, they're doing what they have to do. Until somebody makes them put a ramp at the Oscars, they're not going to do it. And I know that there's, sorry, I was wrong. I know that there's some concern about being the person that rocks the boat, and that's what your agent's for. Essentially, your agent's job is to make them angry at the agent and not at you as the actor. It's also really important that the industry stops using non-disabled actors to play characters with disabilities. There are places where it is necessary when you're doing a before and after, like, you know, Jake Gyllenhaal has legs and has no legs. I understand the purpose for it. But if the character is a wheelchair user, there are fabulous actors who are wheelchair users, and there's just no excuse to put able-bodied actors in a wheelchair. And I mean, I personally find it really distasteful and gross. So here are some practical steps and innovative ways that you can advance your career if you are an actor with disability. Number one, make your own content. And this is especially true for people like myself with chronic illness and energy limitations. They're never going to have to accommodate you on set. They're never going to have to say, until you're a celebrity, they're never going to have to let you only work 4 hours or only be on your feet for 20-minute stretches. They're just never going to have to do that. So if you want those limitations, those parameters, make your own content. Find other disabled creators. There are tons of people who want to work, and it tells me as an agent that you are proactive, and it's very helpful. Also, if you want to see a type of character and you want to show you can play a type of character, play the type of character. Create a short proof of concept, a monologue. Anything you can do to display your abilities is always great. So now I'm going to talk about how to approach your agent with these issues. First, I'm going to address something I get asked frequently, which is about agencies and management companies that focus on actors with disabilities, such as KMR or C Talent or Gamut. They're fantastic agencies and management companies. And if you are fortunate enough to be offered a representation by one of them, you are very privileged indeed, and they will take excellent care of you. However, they cannot represent everybody that has a disability. It's just not feasible. There are too many of us and not enough of them. So I don't want you to, for a second, to think that if you don't get offered representation by KMR or C Talent or any of the other fabulous agencies that specialize in people with disabilities, that you cannot be an actor, because that's just not true. There are tons of other agencies. My agency, the library agency, doesn't focus on specifically people with disabilities, but we have many people with disabilities on our roster because it is my firm belief that our roster should be representative of the greater public. And also actors are actors. And as long as you have the goods, I'm interested. So there are absolutely agencies that are interested in signing disabled talent that are not specifically focused on disabled talent. But if you get the opportunity to sign with an agency that is, you would be in good hands. They absolutely know all about the disability inclusion riders and accommodation requests, and they will be excellent. If you are looking outside those specific agencies, I would make sure that you first build a good relationship with the agent and then discuss with the agent your limitations. Such as if you are a wheelchair user, you should absolutely have photos showing your wheelchair and any other assistive devices you use. I would not make that your first primary photo because you're not a wheelchair with an actor. You're an actor who uses a wheelchair. I would usually advise to make it your third photo. So you see it, but you don't see it right immediately as the only thing about you. You don't want to just be a wheelchair. And so I would say make that your third photo. If you use a prosthesis, again, make sure we can see it in the photo. Or if you are an amputee with no prosthesis, just make sure we can see it in a photo. That you need to be able to display what you look like and who you are, but there's no reason that you have to focus all of your energy and attention on one thing. If you are disabled in a way that is not visible in photos, such as if you're deaf, obviously you can't see unless you have an implant that's visible. So you need to make sure your agent understands that up front, and that your agency is balancing your privacy with submitting you appropriately. Let me explain. Let's say, for example, that you are deaf and you haven't had a discussion with your agent. That can lead to some real dangerous issues. I'm not going to submit a deaf actor for a role where they could not see a visual cue, like in smoke, a lot of smoke, or it's going to, where a visual cue would be missed and it could become a danger to the actor. Outside of those limitations and qualifications for the role, like you're not going to submit a deaf actor to play a telephone operator because that doesn't make sense. But you can submit a wheelchair user to play a telephone operator because there's no reason why not. A deaf person can play a librarian, a deaf person can play a teacher. There's no limit to, you want to make sure your agent isn't going to submit you for only focused on your disability roles, is what I'm trying to get at. But you also want to make sure that you are not misleading your agent about your abilities. If you really cannot run from danger, you need to make sure your agent is aware of that. Also with that, you have to tell your agent about serious allergies. For example, if you have a very serious peanut allergy, you have to tell your agent. There's no way we can safely send you somewhere without knowing that. If you are allergic to soy, you know what I'm saying? If you have allergies, don't let me send you to set and put you in a dangerous position. It is really your responsibility to communicate with your agent. We seem awesome, but we're not psychic. So the other thing that I think would be really helpful is if there were more agents and casting with disabilities. Again, just representation matters. And it's just very frustrating sometimes that we seem to be an afterthought. Also, I'd like to talk to you about mental disabilities. Learning disabilities, you have to have a conversation with your agent about the amount of script you can memorize in X amount of time. That is absolutely a conversation you should have with your agent up front. I have no problem submitting my clients with dyslexia or very serious learning disabilities. I know that I just can't send them 6 pages of script. with a 1-day turnaround. So it's just a conversation you have with your agent, and there's no problem there. The issue comes with a lot of times with mental disabilities and clients for their own mental health disappearing. It happens a lot to us agents. It's a recurring issue where a client is facing some family issues or personal issues, and they just ghost us. That's not okay. And I know sometimes when you are in the middle of a mental health crisis, you don't feel like you can say anything. But if you can create a code with your agent, for my clients, I say, just tell me you need an open-ended book out. And I'm fine with that. I just can't stand the disappearing, because it puts me in an awkward position with casting. We have a very small roster, so people not showing up to their auditions makes me look bad. And at the end of the day, I don't mind people taking time off at all for their mental health. I very much mind people not communicating well. I hope that makes sense. And also, if you're a member of SAG, continue to lobby SAG to make a point of using disability inclusion riders. I'm now going to discuss how parents of children with disabilities can advocate for their kids, because no one is going to know or ask about your kids' needs on set. You have to advocate for your children. So if you have allergy, if the children have allergies, need to take medication, need to have breaks, you need to discuss all of that with your agent in advance. Because kids can only work a small amount of time, those things can actually be discussed and negotiated. I mean, if the kid has an allergy to lactose and they're doing a Whopper with cheese commercial, they're just not qualified. They can't do the job. There's no, adjustment that's going to fix that. But if they need to, take their insulin at X time, the parents are the responsible party. No one's going to remember that on set. You have to be on top of your child's needs. Don't worry about making waves. Health is always first. It is paramount. And, it's like, oh, I don't want to interrupt the shoot. And it's like, well, wait till they say cut. And then, jump in there with the meds. Oh, wow. I jammed through my speech much faster than I anticipated. So I'm going to take a look at some of these questions. Most of them are about Nicholas not being able to hear. Okay, so where or when should you disclose that you're a wheelchair user? I would say to disclose it at the bottom of your resume. They used to tell us back in the day to put in, centered in bold, current passport. Now it fully vaxxed wheelchair user would be where I would put that at the bottom. So it's in bold. You don't want at the top, it's not the most important thing about you, but oh, by the way, I'm also a fully vaxxed wheelchair user. I hope that answers your questions. Just make sure that you find an agent who is the right, or manager who is the right fit for you, who's receptive and is not seeing you as a disability attached to a person, but as an actor separate from your disability. And I am really excited at CODA having won the SAG award brings me so much joy because it's saying that people want to watch actors with disabilities acting, and that they can be amazing, moving stories. And I'm really hopeful, especially considering the number of deaf actors who were playing deaf people. I'm really excited about where we're headed. And I think as long as we raise the awareness and visibility, absolutely. Okay, great. If you don't have representation, you should discuss your limitations with the casting director. I would say wait until you get to the pin or booking stage. And then, yes, I need to be able to wear tennis shoes on set because I just had foot surgery. That's when you say those things after they've already offered you the job, because then they have to make accommodations if they can. Invisible disabilities like PTSD, ADHD, chronic fatigue. Yes, unfortunately, most of the industry is not made up of doctors and clinicians, rheumatologists, and endocrinologists. And so when you say to someone, I have PTSD, I mean, usually people know that. I have chronic fatigue, I have fibromyalgia, that's one no one knows about, which I have, lupus. People don't generally understand what that means. So when you say it, you have to immediately follow it with, and I need X. So I have lupus, I need a special cushion in my seat and footrest under my chair and a blanket and a fan and a lot of stuff. So whenever you get to the booking stage, that's where you say that I need X. If you need to, I need to take a break every 20 minutes to use an inhaler, that's fine. But just make sure you wait till you get to the avail or booking stage, because if you tell them at the audition stage, they're never going to bother. Just my 2 cents. So for neurodiverse creators who have some problems with inauthentic speech, if they cannot memorize their lines in such a way that the acting is convincing, then they probably should work with a specialty coach. I know that there are, in the Parents and Casting Actors 101 Facebook group, it's 101 Parents something, Child Actors Facebook group. They have a lot of resources on specialty coaches. So I recommend that group. Corey Ralston is one of the people who runs that group, and he always has excellent resources. Yeah, we're not at a place where we get any leniency for audition times. And the reason is because they move so quickly. Having worked in casting, let me just say that we will get the breakdown from, what they're looking to cast from the client. And then that same day we put out the breakdown notification. And then that same day we send out audition notifications. This was back when I worked in casting 10 years ago. And then, now that it's all self-tapes, they look at them as they come in. And when they find the one they want, they're done. So if you make them wait, by the time you get it in, the opportunity will have passed. And that's why I encourage you to talk to your agent or manager or coaches or whomever about making sure you work on your non-script required. Commercial acting is much, much better for, because this is one line. I love Mountain Dew. And, mostly that, in commercial acting, there's very small amounts of dialogue. Once you book a few of those, you'll be able to build your confidence into getting into more dialogue and trying to fake it a little better. Also, if you need help, I suggest taping your lines on like a close up of my hand, a sheet of paper right next to wherever your eye line is, so that you can just glance over and grab a line if you need it. A lot of times just having the start of the line just in order next to will spark your memory. And if you have to, you can edit together a tape. But it's more important to get it in than for it to be fully memorized. Earlier is better than later. Yes, thank you. Child Actor 101. Thank you. That was, yeah, on set, if you, no, there's just no leniency anywhere. Also, it's LA and they expect you to deal the, if you have a minor speech disability, I would, and you need a second take or a third take, that's totally fine. Tell them that on set. Just say, I have a minor speech difficulty and it might take a few takes to get the line out. That's not a problem. Wait till you book it and then deal with it then. You're golden. I hope this was helpful. If it wasn't, at least you didn't pay money for this talk. So and we are taking new clients. So if you're interested, you have to have all your ducks in a row. Casting networks, Casting Frontier, Actors Access profiles with pictures and video and or audio, depending. Oh, the other thing I was going to highly recommend to people with physical limitations, especially exhaustion limitations, voiceover. When I got very unwell, I made the transition first into voiceover and had a successful voiceover career. I love a job I can do in my pajamas, wearing my tennis shoes, and it takes about an hour to record. Most of my sessions were an hour to two, with plenty of sitting down in between. So I definitely, if you are having physical and energy level issues, look into voiceover. Mark Cashman has a lot of wonderful free classes, Calmanson and Calmanson, lots of terrific voiceover resources out there. So if you're interested in submitting to our agency, thelibraryagency.com/submissions with all your links. And if you have other questions, yeah, I will repeat what I said about my decision to not be an actor anymore. So what happened was I was in the Crystal Geyser commercials. So if you look up Crystal Geyser cashier on YouTube, you can see me with more hair, longer hair, shaming someone for not buying water. And I spent 16 hours on set, and they tried to talk me into ballet flats. And I will tell you, no, they were fabulous people, wonderful set. But you're never going to see my feet, and you never do. And I wore my tennis shoes, and they had a special spongy floor under me and everything like regular cashiers have. I was so exhausted after the shoot, and all I did was stand there. And I was so physically exhausted that I was bedridden. Like all of my joints were so swollen. I went into a lupus flare. I ended up on steroids, and I just knew I physically was done. And it was soul crushing because I really wanted to be professionally funny. And, but, you know, I have a law degree. I was never going to wait tables. And it's a good thing because I can't physically do it. It was just very important to me that I stayed in this field because I'm really passionate about telling stories, and they were never going to accommodate me. And I could have continued to work as a voice actor. I did a lot of work for Disney, and I could have continued to work as a voice actor, but I have skills that made it much easier for me to make the transition to agenting. My husband's agent said, "Hey, your wife's a lawyer. Could she redo our contracts?" And that's how I ended up as an agent. Yes, I do consider voiceover talent outside of LA, as long as you're in the United States or you're legal to work in the United States, have a home set up with Source Connect, Standard, or Pro. And so that you can record remotely and have your sessions directed remotely. So yes, we definitely consider voiceover outside. We have lots of our VO talents outside LA. You just have to be willing to get up super early if they want to run your session in New York at 9 a.m. at 6 a.m. here. Oh, well, or wherever. You just have to be willing to adjust. I don't specifically know Atlanta. I have never repped in that market. But I think that the idea of an accessible, inclusive studio, I'd be so excited about that, and send you fabulous actors. But the rule that mentioned meeting all qualifications of the job. Okay, so let me just read the definition of disability under the ADA from my fabulous law book. It is, the definition specific is a person. An individual with a disability is defined as a person who has a physical or mental impairment which substantially limits one or more of such person's major life activities, which is almost what I said. I said substantial limitation of major life activity. So you don't have to have multiple limitations, and you don't have to have them limit multiple major life activities. If you had very severe asthma, you would be a person under the ADA with a disability, because you would be substantially limited in the life activity of breathing, which is a major life activity. Working is a major life activity. Walking, speaking, sleeping, seeing. I said speaking. Driving is sometimes, and working. So that's the ADA, which is what generally applies. Most of these studios have more, I mean, in California, you only have to have 5 employees to be covered with the ADA. So pretty much every production is covered. And employers don't have to make a reasonable accommodation unless you are otherwise qualified. So that's the issue, is you have to be otherwise qualified for the job. So if you can't run after the suspect, you're not otherwise qualified. If you can't stand on set for the duration of the shoot, you're not otherwise qualified. Because production moves so quickly and they only have their locations for X number of hours, they have to be able to work until they get the shot. And if you can't, then you're not qualified for the job. I hope that makes sense. I'm sorry, I've been a little all over the place with the question and answers, but I hope this was helpful. I wish everyone the best of luck in their career. I just want you to know that there is space for you in this industry. And as long as you're willing to put in the work, then there absolutely are opportunities for you. And I wish you all the best of luck. Stay safe, stay healthy and well, and reach out if anything I said was super unclear. I'm happy to clarify. Thanks so much.